The transport ship landed on Platform 9 of the United Galactic Military Academy. The station floated in orbit around Saturn's largest moon, and through the windows recruits could see the orange glow of Titan below. Una pressed her face against the cold glass and watched the clouds swirl like soup in a pot. She had never been this far from Earth before. The doors opened with a hiss, and a cold wind rushed into the ship. Una grabbed her single bag and followed the other recruits onto the platform. She was small compared to most of them. At 23 years old, she stood only 5 feet 4 inches tall, with thin arms and a face that looked younger than her age. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard gray uniform of a new cadet. Around her walked creatures from dozens of different worlds. The Kelvari were the most common. They stood 7 feet tall with 4 arms and skin covered in blue and green scales. Their eyes were yellow and shaped like diamonds, and when they spoke, their voices sounded like rocks grinding together. The Thren were even bigger. They looked like bears that had learned to walk upright, with thick brown fur and hands the size of dinner plates. The Vethani were the strangest of all. They were made of clear jelly that glowed with soft light, and they moved around inside metal suits that walked for them. Una felt very small and very human. A loud voice echoed across the platform. All new recruits report to Hangar Bay 7 for weapons assignment. You have 15 minutes. The crowd began to move. Una let herself be carried along by the flow of bodies. She kept her head down and her eyes open, watching everything. This was a habit she had learned long ago, back when watching everything meant staying alive. Hangar Bay 7 was enormous. The ceiling rose so high that Una could not see the lights, only the glow they created. Rows of weapons racks stretched across the floor like metal forests. Each rack held different types of weapons, and signs above them showed their names in 100 different languages. The alien recruits pushed forward eagerly. The Kelvari grabbed plasma rifles that glowed with blue energy. The Thren took heavy cannons that required 2 hands to lift. The Vethani selected drone systems that floated around their metal suits like loyal pets. Everyone wanted the newest and most powerful weapons. Una waited. A Kelvari recruit noticed her standing at the back. He was young for his species, with scales that had not yet darkened with age. His name tag read Torvex. Human, he said, his voice grinding. Why do you not choose a weapon? Are you afraid of them? Una shook her head slowly. I am waiting. Waiting for what? She did not answer. Instead, she watched the crowd thin out as recruits claimed their weapons and moved to the registration desks. When the racks were nearly empty, she walked forward. In the corner of the hangar, covered in dust and forgotten by everyone, sat a single metal case. It was old. The edges were scratched, and the lock was rusted. A small tag hung from the handle. It read, K-14 kinetic rifle, manual operation. No targeting assistance. Una picked up the case and carried it to an empty table. She opened it slowly, and the hinges creaked like an old door. Inside lay a rifle made of dark wood and black steel. It was beautiful in a simple way, like a knife or a stone. The stock was smooth from years of handling, and small marks covered the wood like tiny scars. Each mark was a memory. Each scratch was a story. Una ran her fingers along the barrel. It was cold to the touch. Behind her, Torvex laughed. The sound was harsh and ugly. What is that thing? He asked. Other recruits gathered around to look. Is that a kinetic weapon? You're going to fight with bullets? A Thren named Boric pushed through the crowd. He was massive, even for his species, with arms thicker than Una's whole body. I have seen pictures of those in history files, he said. Humans used them hundreds of years ago. Before they discovered plasma technology, it is a relic, Torvex said. This human wants to fight a galactic war with a museum piece. The laughter spread through the crowd. Una heard it, but she did not react. She simply continued to check her rifle. She pulled back the bolt and looked, cued into the chamber. Clean. She checked the trigger. Smooth. She lifted the scope to her eye and looked through it. Clear. Perhaps she cannot afford a real weapon. A Vethany said through its suit's speaker. Humans are a poor species. Yes. They have only one planet. One planet that they almost destroyed, Boric added. With weapons like that one? Una closed the case and picked it up. She turned to face the crowd. Her face showed nothing. No anger. No embarrassment. No fear? Are you finished? She asked quietly. The laughter stopped. Something in her voice made the aliens uncomfortable. It was too calm. Too empty. Torvex recovered first. We are just telling you the truth, human. You will fail here with that weapon. The Academy tests are designed for modern equipment. Your little rifle cannot compete. Thank you for your concern, Una said. Her voice was flat. I will manage. She walked through the crowd, and the aliens moved aside without thinking. They did not know why. Something about the way she moved made them want to give her space. It was like watching water flow around a stone. An old human man stood near the exit. He wore the uniform of a senior instructor. His chest was covered in medals from wars that most recruits had only read about in files. His name tag read Instructor Kang. His face was lined with age, and his hair was gray, but his eyes were sharp and alive. He watched Una walk past. That rifle, he said softly. A K-14. I have not seen one in 30 years. Una stopped. It was my grandmother's, sir. She taught you to shoot. Yes, sir. In the mountains. On Earth. Kong nodded slowly. The mountains are good teachers. Cold, patient. They do not forgive mistakes. No, sir. They do not. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the hangar continued around them, but they stood in their own small bubble of silence. The other recruits will not make it easy for you, Kong said finally. They see humans as weak, primitive. They think our species is only good for dying in large numbers. I know, sir. Does that bother you? Una considered the question. She thought about her grandmother's hands, rough and strong, guiding her aim on cold mornings. She thought about the mountains that had shaped her, the hunger that had driven her, the silence that had become her home. No, sir, she said. Let them think what they want. Thoughts do not stop bullets. Kong almost smiled. Almost. Report to Barracks 12. Cadet, training begins tomorrow at 0600. Yes. Sir. Una walked away, carrying her ancient rifle in its dusty case. Behind her, the alien recruits continued to laugh and joke about the foolish human with her primitive weapon. They did not know what she was. They did not know what she had done, but they would learn. In the weeks to come, they would all learn that the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was not made of plasma or energy or light. It was made of patience, and Una had more patience than anyone they had ever met. The shooting range was the largest room Una had ever seen. It stretched for 3 kilometers in every direction, with targets that could appear anywhere at any distance. The walls were covered in machines that created wind, rain, fog, and even small explosions to test the recruits under difficult conditions. Holographic screens floated above the range, showing scores and statistics for everyone to see. Today was the marksmanship assessment. Every recruit had to prove they could hit targets at various distances while dealing with environmental challenges. The scores would determine their placement in advanced training programs. A high score meant better assignments and more respect. A low score meant extra training and mockery from the other species. Una sat in the waiting area with her rifle case on her lap. Around her, recruits checked their weapons and talked nervously about the test. The Kelvari compared their plasma rifles and bragged about their accuracy. The Thren tested the weight of their heavy cannons. The Vethany programmed their drone systems with careful precision. Nobody talked to Una. That was fine. She preferred the silence. First group, a mechanical voice announced. Kelvar recruits Torvex, Mira, and Grell. Please proceed to firing positions. Torvex stood up with confidence. His forearms held his plasma rifle like it weighed nothing at all. He walked to the firing line and took his position. The other 2, Kelvari, stood beside him. Begin, the voice said. The first target appeared at 200 meters. It was a simple circle, glowing red against the dark background. Torvex raised his rifle and fired. A bolt of blue plasma shot across the range and hit the target dead center. The holographic screen above him showed hit, center mass. More targets appeared. They moved faster and appeared at longer distances. Torvex kept firing, his forearms keeping the rifle steady even when the machines created strong winds. His scales changed color with concentration, shifting from blue to deep purple. After 5 minutes, the test ended. The screen displayed his final score, 73% accuracy. It was a good score. Not great, but respectable. The other Kelvari scored similarly. The Thren recruits did better at close range, but struggled with distant targets. Their sonic weapons lost power over long distances. The Vethani achieved the highest scores with their guided drone systems. Their machines could adjust for wind and movement automatically. Human recruit Yuna, the voice announced. Please proceed to firing position. The room went quiet. Everyone wanted to see the human with the ancient rifle fail. Yuna stood up slowly. She picked up her case and walked to the firing line. Her footsteps made no sound on the metal floor. She moved like smoke, like shadow, like something that was not quite there. She set down her case and opened it. The K-14 rifle lay inside, dark and simple. She lifted it out and held it for a moment, feeling its familiar weight. Then she lay down on the cold floor in the prone position. She does not even have a bipod, someone whispered. No stabilization at all. Yuna ignored the voice. She pressed her cheek against the wooden stock and looked through the scope. Her fingers found their positions automatically. Index finger on the trigger guard. Thumb resting against the stock. Left hand supporting the barrel. Begin, the voice said. The first target appeared at 400 meters. It was small and moving quickly from left to right. Yuna made a tiny adjustment to her aim. Her finger moved to the trigger. She stopped breathing. Completely stopped. Her body became as still as a stone statue. Not a single muscle moved. Not a single tremor disturbed her aim. The crack of the rifle echoed through the range like thunder. The bullet flew across the 400 meters in less than a second. The target shattered into pieces, hit center mass. Yuna worked the bolt without looking. Her hand moved in a smooth motion that she had practiced 10,000 times before. The spent shell flew out, and a new round slid into the chamber. The second target appeared at 600 meters. Yuna fired. Hit third target. 800 meters. Thick fog rolled across the range, blocking normal vision. Yuna fired. Hit fourth target. 1,000 meters. Wind machines created gusts of 50 kilometers per hour. Yuna made a small adjustment. She fired. Hit. The recruits watching had stopped whispering. They stared at the human on the floor with expressions of disbelief. How was she doing this? How was she hitting targets that their advanced weapons struggled to reach? Target after target appeared. 1,200 meters, 1,500, 1,800. Each time, the ancient rifle cracked, and each time, the target fell. Still, Yuna did not breathe. Up in the observation deck, Instructor Kang watched through a pair of old binoculars. He had refused the holographic display that other instructors used. He wanted to see with his own eyes. Impossible, said an alien instructor beside him. Her weapon has no targeting assistance. No environmental compensation. How is she adjusting for wind and distance? She is not adjusting, Kong said quietly. She is feeling. That makes no sense. Kong lowered his binoculars. Her grandmother taught her to shoot in the mountains of old Earth. No technology. No assistance. Just the rifle, the wind, and the target. She learned to feel the shot before she took it. She learned to become part of the rifle. The alien instructor shook his head. That is not possible. The mathematics of long-range shooting require computer calculation. Perhaps for your species, Kong said. Not for hers. Down on the range, the final target appeared. It materialized at 2,400 meters, almost at the edge of the range. Heat distortion from the machines made the air shimmer like water. Wind gusts reached 70 kilometers per hour. A light rain began to fall, creating a curtain of drops between Yuna and the target. This shot was supposed to be impossible without assisted targeting. The test designers had included it as a challenge for the drone systems, not for handheld weapons. Yuna made a tiny adjustment to her scope. Her fingers moved like spider legs, precise and delicate. She found her aim and held it. For 3 heartbeats, she was perfectly still. The world around her faded away. There was only the rifle, the scope, and the distant target. She felt the wind on her skin and knew its speed. She felt the rain's angle and calculated its effect. She felt the heat rising from the floor and understood how it would bend the bullet's path. She squeezed the trigger, the rifle cracked, the bullet flew through. Wind and rain and heat. It traveled for almost 2 seconds, adjusting to the forces that pushed against it. And then, at 2,400 meters, it found its target. The target exploded, hit, center mass. The holographic screen above Yuna displayed her final score, 100% accuracy, perfect, no misses, no assists. The range was completely silent. Yuna stood up slowly. She worked the bolt one last time, clearing the chamber. She picked up the spent shells and put them in her pocket. Then she placed her rifle back in its case and closed the lid. When she turned around, every eye in the room was watching her. Torvek stood with his mouth hanging open. His forearms hung limp at his sides. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Instructor Kong walked down from the observation deck. His boots clicked against the metal stairs. When he reached the floor, he walked straight to Yuna and stopped in front of her. For a long moment, he said nothing. He just looked at her with eyes that had seen many wars and many soldiers. Then he leaned close and whispered something in her ear. His voice was so soft that no one else could hear. "She is a living ghost." He stepped back and nodded once. Then he turned and walked away. Yuna picked up her case and followed him out of the range. She did not look at the other recruits. She did not smile or celebrate. Her face showed nothing at all. Behind her, the whispers began. What did he call her? A living ghost. What does that mean? I do not know. But I do not want to find out. The legend had begun. The door to Instructor Kong's office was made of real wood. It was one of the few pieces of earth on the entire station. Yuna stood in front of it for a moment, looking at the grain and the small imperfections in the surface. It reminded her of home. She knocked twice. "Enter," came the voice from inside. The office was small and cluttered with memories. Medals hung on the walls beside photographs of soldiers who had lived and died under Kong's command. A flag from the Earth Defense Force lay folded in a glass case. On the desk sat a bottle of rice wine and 2 small cups. Kong sat behind the desk. He looked older in the soft light, his wrinkles deeper and his hair whiter. But his eyes were still sharp, still watching, still calculating. "Sit down, Corporal," he said. Yuna sat in the chair across from him. She placed her hands on her knees and waited. Kang poured 2 cups of wine. He pushed one across the desk toward her. "Drink. This conversation will be easier if we both have something warm in our bellies." Yuna picked up the cup and drank. The wine burned her throat and settled in her stomach like a small fire. It tasted like mountains and cold mornings in her grandmother's kitchen. "You know why I called you here?" Kong said. It was not a question. "Yes, sir." He pulled up a holographic display on his desk. A file appeared in the air between them. At the top, in red letters, were the words classified Ghost Protocol. "This file does not exist," Kong said. "Officially, there is no Ghost Protocol. There never was. It was never approved by the Earth government, and it was never funded by the military." Yuna said nothing. "But we both know that is a lie." Kong touched the display, and the file opened. Inside was a list of names and numbers, dates and locations, mission reports, and death certificates. The Ghost Protocol was a special program during the border wars. The military needed soldiers who could do impossible things. Soldiers who could reach behind enemy lines and remove high-value targets without being detected. "I would not know about that, sir," Yuna said. Her voice was flat. "Of course not." Kong scrolled through the file until he found a specific entry. "But you might know about this. Designation, Spectre 7. 43 confirmed eliminations. All high-value targets. All single shots. All in conditions that our best targeting systems said were impossible. He turned the display so Yuna could see it clearly. Her own face stared back at her from the file. It was younger, thinner, with eyes that had seen too much death. The Dominion thought they had a problem with their satellites, Kong continued. Their generals kept dying, and they could not figure out why. No sniper positions were ever found. No spent shells. No traces of any kind. It was like their leaders were being killed by a ghost. Yuna remained silent. Their first general died on Proxima 3, Kong said. The shot came from 1,800 meters away, during a sandstorm that reduced visibility to less than 50 meters. The shooter was 12 years old. Something flickered in Yuna's eyes. Pain, maybe. Or memory. My grandmother was dying, she said quietly. The Dominion had destroyed our village. They had killed everyone except me. I hid in the mountains with her rifle and watched her grow weaker every day. What happened? A recruitment officer found me. He said he could save her if I did something for the military. A simple job, he called it. Just one shot. Yuna's hands tightened on her knees. I was young. I was desperate. I said yes. Kong nodded slowly. And after that first shot, they told me my grandmother needed more medicine, more treatment. The only way to get it was to do more jobs. Yuna's voice grew even quieter. By the time I realized they were lying, she was already dead. She had died the week after I made my first kill. They just never told me. The office was very quiet. The hum of the station's life support systems was the only sound. I am sorry, Kong said. He meant it. I kept killing anyway, Yuna continued. Not for them. Not for the military. I killed because it was the only thing I knew how to do. Because every general I eliminated was someone who might have ordered attacks like the one that destroyed my village. Because the rifle was the only connection I had left to my grandmother. She touched the case beside her chair. This was her rifle. Before she died, she told me that a weapon is not good or evil. It is just a tool. What matters is the hand that holds it and the heart that guides it. She was a wise woman. She was the best shot in our province. She learned from her mother, who learned from her mother, who learned from her mother. The mountains taught our family to shoot for 5 generations. Yuna looked up at Kang. When I fire this rifle, I hear her voice. She tells me when to breathe and when to squeeze. She guides my hand across the distance. Kong closed the file. The holographic display disappeared. The academy instructors wanted to transfer you out. They said your scores made the alien recruits uncomfortable. They said you were a troublemaker, and you disagreed, sir. I told them that making aliens uncomfortable was exactly what we needed. Kong leaned forward. The Galactic Council thinks humans are weak. They see us as useful tools, nothing more. Good for dying in wars that protect their worlds. Good for doing jobs that they consider beneath them. No, sir. I have heard the jokes. But they have never seen what a human can become when everything is taken from them. They have never met someone who learned to kill, not with machines and computers, but with blood and bone and will. Kong's eyes were intense now. They have never met a living ghost. Yuna frowned. Why do you call me that? Because it is what you are. You move without sound. You shoot without missing. You disappear without trace. Kong stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the orange glow of Titan filled the sky. The Ghost Protocol created many skilled snipers. But only one of them earned the title of Living Ghost. Only one of them became a legend that the Dominion still fears. I did not ask for that legend. No, but you have it anyway. Kong turned back to face her. The question is, what will you do with it? Yuna thought about the question. She thought about her grandmother's voice, calm and steady, teaching her to breathe. She thought about the cold mornings in the mountains, when her fingers were numb and her eyes watered from the wind. She thought about the 43 lives she had taken and the thousands more that might have died if she had not. I do not want revenge, she said finally. I had that once. It did not help. Then what do you want? I want to protect people. Yuna looked at her rifle case. My grandmother protected our village for 60 years. She never killed anyone who did not deserve it. She never used her skill for personal gain. She was a guardian, not a murderer. And you want to be like her? Want to try, sir? I want to use what I learned in the mountains and in the wars to keep people safe. Not just humans. Everyone. She met Kong's eyes. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Someone needs to watch over it. Kong was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was real. I have watched many soldiers come through this academy, he said. Most of them want glory or power or escape, but you want to protect. That is rare. That is valuable. He walked back to his desk and opened a drawer. Inside was a small pin shaped like a single bullet. It was made of black metal and had no markings. This was given to me by my instructor, Kong said. He received it from his instructor, who received it from his instructor. It has been passed down through 5 generations of soldiers. Each one has given it to the recruit they believed had the greatest potential. He held out the pin to Yuna. I want you to have it. Yuna stared at the pin. Her hands trembled slightly as she took it. What does it mean, sir? It means that I believe in you. It means that I trust you to carry on the tradition. Kang sat back down in his chair. It means that you are not just a ghost, Corporal. You are the future of everything we have fought for. Yuna held the pin tightly in her hand. It was small and cold, but it felt heavier than her rifle. Thank you, sir, she whispered. Do not thank me yet, Kong said. The hardest tests are still to come, but I have faith that you will pass them. He poured 2 more cups of wine. Now drink. We have much to discuss about what comes next. Yuna drank. And for the first time since her grandmother died, she felt like she had found someone who understood. The moon had no name. It was simply designated X7 in the military databases, a dead rock orbiting a dead planet at the edge of the training zone. Its surface was covered in jagged black stones and deep canyons that cut through the ground like wounds. The atmosphere was thin and toxic, and dust storms could appear without warning, reducing visibility to nothing. This was where the Crucible took place. The Crucible was the final examination for all Academy recruits. It lasted 3 days and tested everything they had learned. Teams of mixed species would compete against each other in simulated combat, capturing strategic points and eliminating opponents. The winning team would receive top assignments. The losing teams would receive extra training and lower postings. Yuna stood in the briefing room with her assigned teammates. There were 4 of them in total. Torvex was there, his forearms crossed over his chest. He had stopped laughing at Yuna weeks ago after the shooting range. Now he looked at her with something between respect and fear. Pulse was a Vethany engineer. Its body glowed with soft blue light inside its mechanical suit. It spoke in a calm, measured voice, and was skilled at building sensor networks and communication systems. The last member was a young human medic named Doan. He was tall and thin. With nervous eyes and hands that never stopped moving, he had joined the Academy to escape poverty on Earth, and he was still adjusting to life among the stars. Our opponents are Team 3, Pulse said, displaying a holographic image. They have the highest combined scores in the Academy. Their leader is a Kelvari Special Forces candidate named Veska. She is extremely skilled in close combat. The image showed a female Kelvari with dark purple scales and forearms that ended in sharp claws. Her eyes were cold and calculating. They also have 2 Thren heavy gunners named Gorn and Brock, Pulse continued, and a Vethany tactical genius named Spark. Their strategy will likely focus on aggressive forward assault, using their superior firepower to overwhelm opponents. Torvex growled low in his throat. They are stronger than us, faster, better armed. How are we supposed to win? We do not fight them directly, Yuna said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. What do you mean? Doan asked. Yuna pulled up a map of the moon's surface. It showed the canyons, the rock formations, and the 3 strategic points that teams needed to capture. They expect us to fight like them. Force against force, gun against gun. She pointed to the canyons. But we will not do that. We will make them fight on our terms. How? Torvex demanded. We split up. Una traced a path across the map with her finger. Pulse, you will establish a sensor network along the eastern ridge. I want eyes on every approach to the strategic points. Torvex, you and Doan will move through the central canyon. Make noise. Draw attention. Let them think you are our main attack force. And what will you be doing? Doan asked. Una looked at him with empty eyes. I will be somewhere else. The transport dropped them on the moon's surface at midnight. The sky was black, with only distant stars providing light. The dust crunched under their boots as they moved into position. For the first 12 hours, nothing happened. The teams established their camps and sent out scouts. Una watched Team 3 through her scope from 2 kilometers away. She lay on a ridge covered in black rocks, invisible against the dark ground. Viska was smart. She kept her team together, moving in a tight formation. The 2 Thren flanked her while Spark directed drone scouts in all directions. They were hunting for Una's team. They did not find them. On the second day, Team 3 captured the first strategic point. It was a small structure built into the side of a canyon wall. They fortified it with shield generators and took defensive positions. They have Point Alpha, Pulse reported through the communication channel. Should we counterattack? No, Una replied. Let them have it. They will spread out now. They will feel confident. She was right. After securing Point Alpha, Veska sent Gorn to scout ahead toward Point Beta. The Thren moved alone, confident in his size and firepower. His sonic cannon could tear through rock. His thick fur protected him from the cold. He climbed a ridge to get a better view of the terrain. At the top, he stopped and scanned the horizon. A single crack echoed across the canyon. Gorn looked down at his chest. A hole had appeared in his armor, right through the power core. The shot had been perfectly placed, hitting the only weak point in his protection. His suit sparked and went dead. Gorn is down. Veska's voice came over their channel. What happened? I do not know, Gorn replied, confusion in his voice. I did not see anything. I did not hear anything. There was just a crack. The simulation registered him as eliminated. He sat down on the ridge and waited for extraction. Veska pulled her team back to Point Alpha. They set up defensive positions and waited for the attack that never came. Una moved to a new position 3 kilometers away. She found a spot between 2 large rocks where she could see Point Alpha clearly. The wind was strong here, blowing dust across her scope. She adjusted her aim and waited. Hours passed. The dust storm grew stronger. Visibility dropped to a few hundred meters. Veska ordered Brock to move to a protected position on a nearby ledge, where he could watch for approaching enemies. Brock climbed to the ledge and raised his cannon. He felt safe. Nothing could approach through this storm without being seen. Crack echoed through the wind. His communication array exploded in a shower of sparks. He was alive but cut off from his team, unable to call for help or receive orders. Down in Point Alpha, Spark's drones detected nothing. No heat signatures. No movement. No trace of the shooter. How is this possible? Spark asked. My sensors cover the entire area. There is no one out there. There is someone, Veska said grimly. We just cannot see her. By the end of the second day, Team 3 had not moved from Point Alpha. They were afraid. Every shadow could hide the invisible shooter. Every distant rock could be a sniper's nest. They did not know where she was, and that uncertainty paralyzed them. Meanwhile, Torvex and Doan captured Point Beta without resistance. Pulse established sensor coverage over Point Gamma. Una's team controlled 2 of the 3 strategic points. On the third day, Veska made a decision. She gathered her remaining team members and prepared to assault Point Beta. It was risky. But staying hidden was clearly not working. We move together, she ordered. Keep your shields up. Watch every direction. They moved out in a tight group, shields overlapping, weapons ready. They looked like a moving fortress of steel and scale and fur. Una watched them through her scope from 1,800 meters away. The dust storm was starting to clear, but the air was still thick with particles. A normal shooter would not attempt this shot. Yuna was not a normal shooter. She adjusted her scope for wind speed, dust density, and distance. Her finger rested on the trigger. She stopped breathing. The first shot hit Veska's shield generator. The device sparked and died, leaving a gap in their protection. The second shot, fired 3 seconds later from a completely different position, hit Spark's suit in the leg joint. The Vethany stumbled and fell. The third shot hit the ground directly in front of Veska. Kicking up dust and forcing her to stop, Yuna had moved between shots, covering hundreds of meters in seconds, finding new positions and new angles. It seemed impossible. It was impossible for anyone but her. Veska stood in the middle of the canyon. Shields failing, team members down, facing an enemy she could not see. She looked around at the empty rocks and the swirling dust. "Where are you?" she shouted into the wind. "Show yourself." There was no answer. Only silence. After a long moment, Veska lowered her weapon. "We surrender," she said quietly. "The point is yours." Torvex and Doan emerged from their hiding spots and accepted the surrender. The simulation ended. Team 7 had won the Crucible. As extraction ships arrived to collect the teams, Veska approached Yuna. The Kelvera's scales were dull with exhaustion and defeat. "How did you do it?" she asked. "My sensors saw nothing. My scouts saw nothing. It was like fighting a ghost." Yuna slung her rifle over her shoulder. The ancient weapon looked worn and simple next to the advanced technology around them. "In my grandmother's mountains," she said, "we had a saying. The best hunter is the one the prey never sees. The best shot is the one that seems to come from nowhere. But how did you move so fast? How did you know where we would be?" Yuna looked at the gray sky, at the dust swirling in the thin air, at the black rocks that had hidden her so well. "I did not need to move fast," she said. "I just needed to be patient. And I have been patient my whole life." She walked toward the extraction ship without looking back. Behind her, Veska watched with something new in her cold eyes. It was not anger or shame, it was respect. The graduation ceremony was held in the grand hall of the academy. It was a massive room with walls made of transparent metal, showing the stars and planets beyond. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the observation galleries. Politicians, military commanders, and important figures from 100 different worlds had come to see the new officers receive there. Commissions Yuna stood in formation with the other graduates. She wore her dress uniform, pressed and perfect, with the small black pin that Instructor Kong had given her attached to her collar. Her rifle was not with her. It was displayed in the Academy's Hall of Honor. Behind a glass case that protected it from dust and time, the plaque beneath the rifle read, "The weapon does not make the warrior. The warrior makes the weapon." Donated by Corporal Yuna, graduate with highest distinction, ceremony proceeded with speeches and awards. Officers from different species received their ranks and assignments. The crowd applauded politely for each one, though the loudest cheers came for the Kelvari and Thren graduates. They were the species that the galaxy expected to produce great soldiers. When Yuna's name was called, the applause was quieter. She was just a human after all. Just a small female from a single planet species. Nothing special. But then the announcer read her scores. Corporal Yuna. Perfect marksmanship rating. Crucible team leader. Strategic victory with 0 friendly casualties. Awarded the Black Pin of Excellence. The applause grew louder. Some of the alien observers leaned forward to get a better look at the small human, who had achieved what their own species could not. Yuna walked to the stage and received her commission. She shook hands with the Academy Commandant and accepted her assignment papers. Her face showed nothing as always, but inside, she felt something warm. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction. After the ceremony, she stood alone on one of the observation decks. The station rotated slowly, and Titan appeared through the window like a giant orange eye. Yuna watched the clouds swirl and thought about how far she had come. Corporal Yuna. She turned. An old Kelvari stood behind her. His scales had faded to gray with age, but his 4 eyes were still bright and alert. He wore the uniform of a high admiral, with medals covering his entire chest. I am Admiral Voss, he said. I commanded the fleet during the siege of Proxima. Una stiffened. Sir, you do not need to be formal. I am not your commanding officer. Voss moved to stand beside her at the window. I wanted to meet the human they call the living ghost. I do not know why they call me that, sir. I do. Voss looked out at Titan. During the siege, we lost 3 generals in a single week. Each one was killed by a single shot from impossible range. Our intelligence team searched for months but never found the shooter. They concluded it was a malfunction in our satellite defense network. He turned to face her. But I never believed that. Satellites do not choose targets. They do not wait for the perfect moment. They do not disappear without trace. Una said nothing. I am not angry, Voss continued. Those generals were planning attacks that would have killed millions. By removing them, you saved more lives than I can count. He paused. I came here to thank you. I was following orders, sir. I was just a tool. No. Voss shook his head. A tool does not feel. A tool does not choose. You were a soldier doing what you believed was right. There is a difference. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars. The Galactic Council has authorized a new Special Operations Division, Voss said finally. It will be cross-species, focused on unconventional warfare. The missions will be dangerous and often impossible. We need the best soldiers from every world. And you are telling me this because I want you to lead the human contingent. Voss reached into his pocket and pulled out a small holographic card. This is my official offer. You would have the rank of lieutenant and command of all human special operators. You would report directly to me. Una took the card and looked at it. The word Special Operations Division Human Contingent Commander glowed in blue light. Why me? She asked. There are soldiers with more experience, more rank, more connections, because you are different from them. Voss crossed his forearms. The others fight because they want glory or advancement. You fight because you want to protect. I have read your file. I have talked to Instructor Kang. I know what drives you. He stepped closer. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Lieutenant. Old enemies are rising again. New threats appear every day. We need soldiers who can do impossible things. Soldiers who can disappear like ghosts and strike from nowhere. Soldiers like you. Una looked at the card for a long moment. She thought about her grandmother's voice, steady and calm, teaching her to breathe. She thought about the mountains of Earth, cold and harsh, shaping her into what she had become. She thought about the lives she had taken and the lives she had saved. I have one condition, she said. Name it. My team chooses their own missions. We do not kill innocents. We do not follow orders that conflict with our conscience. She met his 4 eyes with her too. I am done being a tool for people who do not care about lives. Voss considered this. His scales shifted color slightly as he thought. Agreed, he said finally. You will have full operational authority. Your conscience will be your guide. Una nodded slowly. Then I accept. Voss smiled. It was a strange expression on a Kelveri face, but it seemed genuine. Welcome to the division, Lieutenant. I look forward to seeing what you accomplish. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing on the metal floor. Una stayed at the window. The stars burned in the darkness, countless points of light stretching to infinity. Somewhere out there, threats were gathering. Enemies were planning. Innocent people were living their lives, aware of the dangers that lurked in the shadows, and someone needed to protect them. Footsteps approached from behind. Una did not need to turn around to know who it was. I heard about the offer, Instructor Kang said. Congratulations, Lieutenant. Thank you, sir. Kang moved to stand beside her. He looked older in the starlight, the lines on his face deeper and the gray in his hair brighter. I have something for you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small cloth bag. Inside was a handful of wooden beads worn smooth by years of handling. These belong to your grandmother, Kang said. She gave them to my father during the first contact wars. He passed them to me, and now I pass them to you. Una's hands trembled as she took the beads. They were warm against her skin, as if they still held the heat of her grandmother's touch. "How did you know my grandmother?" she whispered. "She saved my father's life. He was wounded behind enemy lines, and she carried him 30 kilometers through the mountains to safety." She was 63 years old at the time. Kong smiled softly. She told him that a true soldier does not fight for victory. They fight for the people who cannot fight for themselves. Tears gathered in Yuna's eyes, but they did not fall. She held the beads tightly and pressed them against her heart. "I miss her," she said. "I know." Kong placed a hand on her shoulder. "But she is not gone. She lives in you. In every shot you take, in every life you save, in every impossible thing you accomplish, a step back. Go now, Lieutenant. The galaxy is waiting for its living ghost." Yuna took a deep breath. She wiped her eyes and straightened her uniform. The beads went into her pocket, where they would stay for the rest of her life. She walked toward her future. Outside the window, the stars stretched on forever. Somewhere in that vast darkness, evil was hiding. Cruelty was festering. Innocents were suffering. But now there was someone watching over them, eh? Small human woman with an ancient rifle and an patience that could outlast thee. Stars, a guardian who moved like smoke and struck like lightning. Living ghost, and the galaxy would learn to fear the silence between heartbeats, because in that silence, Yuna was waiting, and she never missed.